welcome to Sunday Brunch with Higher Heights, powered by the SIP Presents. Your host. Wait, hey y'all. Welcome to the SIP. And your hosts are Tracy Sturdivant from the League, Judith Brown Dianis from the Advancement Project National Office Action Fund, Adrian Shropshire from Black Pack, Fatima Goss-Graves will tell her story when she gets on, but Fatima Goss-Graves from the National Women's Law Center Action Fund, and I am Glenda Carr from Higher Heights. And clearly, this is going to be the show. So pull up a sip. I'm sipping on a cup of coffee because I got my new coffee maker. Because this has been, y'all thought that March was a mess. You thought April, May, June, July, August, September. Honey, October came up in here with a blatant.
Like October surprise? Yikes.
30 days, literally until the end of voting on November 3rd. There's a lot happening. So this is a hot topics sip hour. So we need you to invite your crew and host a watch party or share the feed. If you are not following us on social media, it's at the SIP Hour so that you can get all the latest from the SIP Hour. And so we are just going to get started, and Fatima will be back. And we have one of our girlfriends, one of the most brilliant policy experts and legal minds in the country, Michele Jawando, joining us for this SIP. But where are you watching from, and what do you think about this week, y'all? Put it in the comments.
Hi, Michele. Welcome.
Hi, friends. Everybody.
Oh,
Hey.
so cheery. Bless your heart.
So we're gonna start with Fatima telling us why she was a little late, because it's hilarious.
She was there and then disappeared.
My children unplugged the internet and packed it in a box. So turns out when that happens, you don't have internet and you
Can't do the
You
SIP.
can't.
Can't do the SIP presents.
I need a real sip. Right now I have coffee. I need like a...
Well, I'm drinking a Moscow Mule today because that's what kind of like week and day it has been. First of all, I just want you all to know I'm an actual empty nester right now. Look, and let me tell you what you do in your first few days of being an empty nester. You be checking your phone like, did she call? Did she call? I'm like a 16-year-old girl waiting for that boy again. I'm like, she called. And that girl ain't even thinking about you.
Think about you, girl.
She ain't thinking about you.
At all.
Crazy. And so welcome, Michele, because I always want to welcome Michele because Michele, you know, you're doing homeschooling with lots of children. So tell everybody, like, how many children do you have? First of all, she's married to a wonderful person Will Jawando, who is a councilman in Montgomery County, and he is holding it down on all the right issues. Thank goodness for him. And Michele is, you know, nothing to sneeze at, that's for sure. She's a wonderful, smart, brilliant lawyer, policy strategist, and all of that. And a mama bear.
Man, listen.
How you doing?
First off, I love how y'all invited me on this crazy week. So let me just call all of y'all, because all of y'all are supposed to be my friends. I can't come on a nice happy week. I got to come on this week. First off, you know, but I actually was so excited, and hey, everybody in SIP world, I was really excited to join this week because it was just so heavy. I just wanted to talk to my girlfriends, and now we're in this virtual world, and so we don't get the opportunity to do that. We're all rocking our vote necklaces because we're feeling that 20-day pressure, and I am in the middle. They call it virtual learning. I call it virtual hell, because it is a beast. I have 4 kids, and 3 are school aged. And so just trying to figure out that dynamic between work, homeschool, holding down the house, making sure everything's sanitized, giving them the opportunity to breathe, and just really still making sure that I find time for myself, because at the beginning of this year, I said I was really going to focus on my health and my self-care. So it's just really like, it is that season. And then, oh, by the way, the fate of our democracy.
Well, there's that.
29 days. 29 days.
There is that.
Well, Michele should clarify. She has 3 school-age kids that are elementary school.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
That's a whole different, game. We talk. So she like, if you are a girlfriend, she will call you, but it's like 8 a.m. and she's hiding in the bathroom, like.
Back.
And then within half hour, I got to see, hi. Each one of them came to say hi. She's like, can I have something?
No, I was like, oh, the bathroom works for you? Because it does not work for me. I still have not found the hiding spot.
That's like my spot. That's like where I do like 50% of my most productive things, in the bathroom. Yeah.
I know.
Tracy, I love the story of you with the ice cream.
Oh, so Michele, he waits until I get on really important calls where he sees like I'm engaged, and he literally goes into the freezer. I put it up. He doesn't care. Got a little step stool, and we'll get a pint of ice cream. And the first time he had a spoon and a pint and was sashaying past me to go upstairs. Like, I know you're not gonna stop me. I was like, I can't even. Okay, never mind. I'm failing.
You're not on TikTok. See, they're on TikTok. There's like, people are doing these challenge, you do challenge videos and stuff, and everybody does the same subject. Well, there's one about working from home, and like all the people that do it are like, like there'd be somebody who's like acting like they work for like, they do like online sex stuff, right? And they're like, and yes, and I would. Yes, I hear you. So like, there's hilarious, but that's like real life. This week, we dropped off the child for, on a 2-week extravaganza to drop her at college. I did 2 panels from the car on our 16-hour drive. I did an IG live from a moving car. I did a press conference from a bathroom in a hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to do what you got to do. That's what this age is about, doing what you got to do.
I do wonder, like, looking back on this moment 5 years from now, not even 10 years, but like 5 years from now, like, how will we describe this moment to our kids? Like, I often wonder, like, how am I going to explain this to him? He was watching yesterday. He was like, Donald Trump in the hospital. I said, yeah. I don't even know. What should I tell you about? I will talk about this in 10 years.
But I'm not going to have patience. I'm going to be like, oh, you think it's a hard year?
Yeah.
Right. Tell me about that pandemic.
I'll tell you about 2020.
You working from the corner of a room? Oh,
yeah. Did you guys see, one of the things that I thought was just so interesting is this week, the Washington Post put out this piece on this is the most unequal pandemic.
Yeah.
And really looking at the fact that, of course, Black women are going to stand to lose the most in the workforce in terms of the numbers of Black women having to leave the workforce or slowing down work.
Every number is going, put it in the middle one.
Yeah. Mothers,
the high number.
Children. And so, just when you put that all together, it feels like we're in a time that nobody will forget.
Put it on 3.
Hey, Judith.
Judith, put yourself on mute.
Not on mute.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I did read
And
that.
welcome to our week.
You're like, Judy, what number's Judy talking
Michele
about?
is like,
Read that number.
I remember I said she doesn't call. She's calling right now.
I was about to say, you must have got that phone call because you take.
meanwhile,
the world
Michele is providing expert commentary and analysis.
I'm like, yeah, those are not the numbers, Judy. They were saying that 1 in 4 senior women in senior level positions are contemplating leaving or scaling down their work because it is just so unequal in terms of trying to manage life and family. in this moment. And that, to your point, Michelle, that doesn't even include folks who don't have the luxury of working from home and, the kind of luxuries that those of us who have gainful unemployment and haven't necessarily missed a beat from an economic standpoint, for sure. So like it's just unequal in so many ways, but the folks who are most impacted by it are us, our folks.
That's right.
I'm back.
You were like my baby calling. I'm
sorry. So is that hilarious? I just told y'all how she does not call, and I
must be watching.
I'm on the sip. She's like, I don't care.
I love it.
No. Okay, so let's move into like the week, right? Or let's move into the to the past few days with the president testing positive and the first lady and a lot of other people, some senators, because they were at a super spreader event. And so with him in now being transported to the hospital, I mean, this set of events is crazy. So I want to start big because I think there's a question around, and we'll go into the details of how this has played out. But there's like this big question looming right now. If he is actually incapacitated, then what happens, right? And there is this thing called the 25th Amendment, right? Where there would be a transfer of power. We all know that he will never do that voluntarily. I don't care if he's on a respirator, he's not gonna do that. So Fatima, let's break down like, what's the worst case scenario? And let's say, putting aside death, right? Like in a scenario where he's very sick, what will happen under the 25th Amendment to transfer power?
Yeah, I mean, I think your first point about it's highly, I am struggling to imagine a set of circumstances where he would initiate it, right? But under the 25th Amendment, you can initiate a temporary transfer of power. You know, you guys might remember in the Bush administration, he did that a couple of times when he just had colonoscopies. And at the time, people were sort of nervous, like, did he just give Cheney power? And what is Cheney gonna do? There was a lot of attention to it. And Reagan did it when he had surgery. So there have been times when there have been these temporary, initiated by the president, transfers of power. There can be an involuntary one if there is a determination that the president is injured or ill, but like what that means and what that standard is, it's never happened in that way. But theoretically, a majority of Congress could vote and about their concern, and then in this case, it would be Senator Grassley could take that up. I know, just bear with me, because he is in the role where would make the determination. It has not been evoked in this way, and you should know, if there is a temporary one, the presumption is when the president is no longer incapacitated, they get their job back. It's not like you could just be temporary president and be like, my first action is you are no longer president. That's not how that works. But there is a line of succession that I think people are thinking about a little bit too, because if you think about in the Nixon years, which was, the time where you had a president leave and you also had a vice president leave, but what happened actually was the vice president left first,
right?
And then a year later, Nixon left. So Nixon was able to appoint his vice president, who became the head. So we haven't had to go to the Speaker of the House or the President of the Senate, which Senator Grassley is. So this is like unprecedented times, and I am quite confident that there will not be a set of circumstances where the president is voluntarily coming up with a plan that makes him even temporarily not president.
It is fascinating though, because it feels like even, I mean, the given the rate at which this inner circle is being diagnosed as positive, right? When you think about, I mean, I have no idea how they interact with each other, but it is surprising that Pence remains negative. But you could see, just in terms of thinking about secession, you could see a moment where, you know, I mean, people just got tested, so and will have to be retested, right? Like you could see where a moment where more people actually come up positive from that super spreader event, and then that's where I think why people are thinking about what that means in terms of how, who's going to end up being, you know, temporary president, given the ways in which people are being completely irresponsible and interacting.
Well, and are they going to be transparent about those tests? And so I think that it's so interesting to see.
Talk some about that, like this moment of like feeling like there's no level of transparency, there's contradicting information about what has happened. Talk some about that and why that transparency is important in this moment.
I mean, I think that there are three things that, and Tracy, I didn't know if you want to finish your thought.
No, go ahead.
You know, the three things that really stand out for me in this moment is, you know, we've had moments with other presidents where there was something about them that we didn't necessarily have a lot of confidence, right? So George W. Bush, most famously with 9/11 and the weapons of mass destruction and the whole thing. But we have never been in a moment where not only do we have a lack of confidence in the president, but all of those around him, even as far as the medical doctors who are treating him, we are begging for a third party to review and look at this information, because for the past 4 years, we've constantly had this stream of things that were not true, that were lies, that were basically put out to confuse and diminish or to mitigate the truth of a circumstance. So now, here in a moment where the American people need to know what's happening with their president, we don't know who to believe. And so I think that the first thing that this really does is it puts a sense of even greater chaos and uncertainty for the American people. I think the second thing that jumps out is we are like reaching out for leadership, and even just like perhaps someone affiliated with the Republican Party to stand up and to be that leader. And we don't have that. You know, I think famously of John McCain, or even when I was on the Senate a long time ago, Senator Arlen Specter in Judiciary Committee would occasionally just like go the other way and really be that on the vanguard. And you're not finding that this time. And I think that just speaks to the constant barrage and assault that this president has put forward on this administration and the Republican Party. And I think finally, the last thing I'll say is, when you have all of this happening at the same time, you have an election 29 days from now. I mean, we're voting right now as we speak. The sense of confusion that the American people have to overcome to still do their duty, and we're begging people to do that duty, is a lot. And so when you just think about the difficulty and the trauma and the mental, you know, anguish that people are just trying to understand, like, what is happening in my country, it's a lot to take. And I think that's why like moments like this are so important to help break through all of that and really deconstruct what's happening.
So Tracy, talk about this transparency, the media coverage. You know, what should Americans believe? There was a lot of back and forth between yesterday and today about, did he have oxygen? Did he not have oxygen? Did his levels drop down? Does he have a fever? You know, they're confusing the hell out of people. And so what are we supposed to walk away with at the end of the day?
You know, I've been watching Sanjay Gupta since Thursday, and I'm like, come on, Sanjay, tell me what's going on. And I think what's interesting and sad about this moment is it's not just liberals or Democrats who are concerned. It's also conservatives and Republicans too. And I think that Michele's point about there not being leadership on that side who's sort of standing flat-footed, going like, come on, gang, right? Your chief of staff messed up when Mark Meadows came in and contradicted the talking points that he had given to the medical team. And that's what set everybody a flurry, because he said we were concerned. We actually wanted him to go to the hospital, that his advisors pushed him to go to the hospital. And so, because to your point, there is no sense of faith, right, on either side that they're being transparent. And, you know, a lot of the coverage has talked about how when, you know, Reagan was in the hospital, or even Bush, like, they don't want you to know the whole story, but this is so different because we are 29 days from an election. People have already started to vote, and so they deserve to have this level of transparency. When his medical team came out yesterday, they were being very elusive as the press asked them very direct questions about whether or not he had received oxygen. You know, when did he test positive? What did he know he was positive when he went to the debate? Did he know he was positive when he went to the fundraiser on Thursday? And so, because there has not been the sort of unequivocal answers, not just from the doctors, but from other people in the administration in his camp, it's still this sort of gray cloud that's hanging. And the fact that he actually might be really sick. They finally acknowledged earlier this afternoon that he has in fact had 2 doses of oxygen. And, you know, it was just a little bit. I'm like, but it was enough for him to have needed it, right? And that his chest x-ray scans show what one would expect. Well, what a doctor would expect, or me as a layperson who doesn't know exactly what that means. And so folks are now trying to unpack that. And if you watch MSNBC or CNN, like, they are going in on that. I've been watching Fox News and they're like, let's talk about COVID in the NFL. I'm like, no, come on, y'all.
You know what? I watched Fox News too, and I was surprised that there was one segment about how the White House may be losing credibility.
That's right. That's right. But those segments are few and far between as they're trying to shape the narrative with his base.
But they also aren't doing contact tracing. I mean,
well, that's the other piece.
You know, we're finding out the details of all the many places he has been.
That's right.
Since while he was likely contagious, and those local health officials have been saying they haven't heard anything from the White House.
Well, the White House is saying that they are doing contract tracing, but you have the governors of those states who are primarily Democrats saying, well, nobody has contacted us yet. And so we're trying to do it on our own because they are not driving the contact tracing.
Well, you even had Chris Christie, who was in debate prep and found out about Hope Hicks' diagnosis from watching television.
Right.
You know, I mean, and then, like, listen, if we go way back and we look at other countries around the world, what have they done? Contact tracing and exposure notification, some form of how do you let people know what's happening? And this goes back again to the malfeasance and governance here, right? That we don't have any of those systems set in place that will cover the entire country so that we can actually see, okay, I was here, you were there, let's get the information. I mean, we've seen this work successfully in other countries. And yet here we are 29 days from the election, and even the president, with all of the resources he has, hasn't even gone through the process of doing that.
Well, I think the other problem is, you know, from a rapid response perspective, like, they have botched the response on this, because at the end of the day, when Hope Hicks, the story broke, they did not want to tell that he actually had been tested positive for this. When the Bloomberg story broke, about Hope Hicks testing positive, the only reason that it broke was that someone else had contracted it when they were doing the tracing, and her name came up. And then that's how this started to unfold Wednesday into Thursday. I believe, had that information not hit the wire, I don't know if we would know.
We wouldn't know.
So you think if Hope didn't come out, we wouldn't know?
No, I don't think so.
Michele, I feel like there's the point that you made about the lack of transparency being that they're not telling anyone what's going on or what to do. I mean, there was a report today about how there hasn't been any even a memo that's gone out to White House staff to say, here's what you should do, here's what you need to know, and here's what you should do. And I do think that one of the things that's getting completely overlooked in this conversation are the people who work in the White House,
Oh
the
my
people who work in
goodness.
the residency.
That's right. That's right.
And the people who were at the debate, and the
Right.
people who were serving at those fundraisers.
Right.
The workers are not, their names aren't on the list, but how many of them may have then been infected and brought that home to their own families?
That's right.
Like the irresponsible nature of this week and the lives who may be upended around it. It's just really, really.
Yeah, so let's do a little bit of a pivot on that responsibility issue, because the other thing we know is that there are, I think is it now 3 senators who have tested positive?
Right.
So far, right?
Or that we know of.
Disclose that they have.
And some of the senators, including Senator Grassley, has said that they are not getting tested, so that he's refusing to get a test. So
here we are, and the Senate has important things to do over the next few weeks, including moving forward on the nomination of a Supreme Court.
Is that an important thing?
Right.
Important to them.
I object.
That the super spreader event was him announcing the
Nomination.
Right.
Listen, I actually think it highlights that the most important thing they need to do over the next couple of weeks is deal with COVID. I don't want to hear them doing anything else.
Yep.
They still haven't passed another relief package.
That's right.
And a second wave is coming.
Right.
And our hospitals won't be ready. And our schools that wanted to reopen can't, because they don't,
Well, that's nice, Fatima. That's really nice that you think that. That's really, like, love you, bless your heart. Michele, let's talk about how they're going to keep moving this Supreme Court justice, because they're going to. Are they going to do virtual hearings? What is their plan?
So the thing, and Fatima and I have many late dark nights on the Supreme Court nomination.
In the bathroom, talking in the bathroom.
In the bathroom, all over, okay? In the Senate, off the side rooms, in the bathrooms over there. This nomination was the end of a 50-year experiment with an alliance between the deep religious right and business conservatives to overtake and reimagine the court. Like, what we're seeing is not anything that was not planned 50 years ago. What we really are seeing now come to bear is the last grasp that they see of their opportunity, no matter what happens in the White House, no matter what happens in the Senate, no matter what happens in the House, if they have the court, everything is up for grabs. Now, when I say that, and many of us have talked about the courts for a long time, we've been seen as alarmist. But when you think about the fact that, the current nominee is someone who, by all measures, yes, she is a good person and has wonderful children, but by all measures is the exact opposite of the person who previously filled that seat, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And it is in so many ways a rebuke of what RBG was trying to do on that court, and every dissent and every opinion. And the reason why she has so much adulation from business conservatives and this religious right coalition is because she is the epitome of all of their concerns. She will help on business. She will help strike down Roe v. Wade. She will overturn the ACA. And what's so funny is, for so long, people have said, oh, the courts aren't political. The courts are the most political process we have. And the fact that we are now starting to see some revival and some energy around the courts, that's great. But we needed you 20 years ago. Right? Like, we needed you like in the first term of Barack Obama. We needed you so many times before. And of course, we are going to fight with everything and all of the great work that Fatima and so many others are out daily doing is vital in both education. But what folks have to realize is this is the prize for them. So come COVID, come election, they're going to get as many people as they can on their side to try to make this happen.
So
But I do want to just say one thing.
How are we going to beat it back, Fatima?
I mean, I was about to say, like, listen, a week ago, so here's what they did. They tried to make you think. McConnell said, I have the votes before there was a nominee, right? That has never happened, by the way. Right. Where, you know, usually there is at least some pretense that
know who it is.
That's right. You want to know who it is.
You know who they are they a lawyer? Are they, you know?
And he did that to make people feel defeated, to make you feel like there's nothing I can do. They're gonna grab power. They did not have to do it that way. And what we have seen is their plan being upended. The Senate is in recess because it has now been infected with COVID until October 19th. So that is the first thing. So that means the people aren't able to engage.
That's right.
And they're saying they're going to keep going, but that would require a virtual hearing. And I have to say, when we're talking about a lifetime appointment, this fight is not over. It is extraordinary that they would try to do this. And the people, poll after poll, has showed that people are outraged by the idea that there would be this sort of terrible power grab. They want to believe, as political as the court is, and I agree with you, Michele, they don't want it to be political.
That's right.
They want it to be something different. And so this is going to feed all into the election, and people don't like seeing this right before their eyes.
Mm-hmm. You know, the other thing here, though, and I think Fatima is exactly right, that, 2 weeks ago, everything looked like it was on track. And now we have 2 members from the Judiciary Committee, another Senate committee chair, the president has COVID. So literally every day something can happen, right? So you don't want to walk into a fight defeated. And I think, unfortunately, that's how a lot of, I would say more on the liberal, progressive, Democratic side, it's like, oh, well, there's nothing to do. But what you're seeing, because so many people feel like there's just like a sense of, it's wrong for us to be doing this so close to the election. Like, didn't we hear about this guy, Merrick Garland and Obama? Like, people can't put all of the pieces together, but they know it's just wrong. Like, you can't, like, sometimes you just see something, you're like, that just don't feel right. And I think that that's the piece that you tap into. Like, yeah, this isn't right. Like, we used to have certain standards. We used to say that there were things that we would do together. And you as the American people have a role to play. And I think that that's the biggest thing, that all of these power grabs continually try to make people feel like you don't have a role and you don't have power in shaping these decisions, when in fact you have all of the power, and it's just them trying to manipulate the systems to erase your power, which is why we have to double back.
So my mama, who's watching right in Detroit right now, she's got her absentee ballot. She's going to vote. But between now and this fight and election day, what should regular everyday folks who are going like, that don't sound right, what should they be doing, right, to like dial into this fight?
Well, there's two. Voting is one, so they should be voting. So good job, mama. But they also need to let their senators know. And if you think, I don't need to let my senator know because I think my senator is going to be in the right place, that's not enough. They need to know that you are outraged, that you are angry about this, that this is the sort of thing that worries you, because we also need the Democratic senators to fight. This is not a typical time.
And I would also remind people that, look, I always think about the line, the South got something to say, right? There are a lot of Black folk in the South There are a lot of Black women in the South. Hey, mama. And like your voices, like if we reach out and scream and get people excited and talking about these issues, there's so much power there. I mean, that's exactly what Judy and Adrienne do every single day. Tracy and Glenda, like that's your work. And so I think so much of that is critical because it is about redirecting the energy to the places where we can make change. And that this time, 29 days, voting now, calling your senators, telling them like, this is not okay. Because what then happens is me as a former Senate staffer, I'm hearing we got 10,000 calls into the office today, boss. You got to go on the floor in the Senate and address people and tell them, we hear you and we're going to fight.
I wanted to let's shout out some of our viewers because the sisters are very active in the chat right now for the show. So we had Andrea who said 45 needs to tell state AGs to withdraw the ACA case that's going to be in front of SCOTUS because President got great health care. That other people are saying don't trust the cabinet. Lisa said don't trust the cabinet or Congress to declare the president incompetent and don't trust that he will do it himself. Gabrielle said this is such a huge, totally avoidable crisis. I can't imagine any administration handling this in a more reckless, irresponsible way. Everyone associated with this administration is unfit to lead.
Can I, Judith, I want to just reiterate two things that Michele and Fatima said about people contacting their senators. Because I often think that sometimes because so many Black folks are Democrats, that they often think, well, I'm gonna call my Democratic senator if I have one, right? And I'm not gonna engage the Republican senator because that person is those people's senator. And the reality is that if you live in a state where you have a Republican senator, that senator is your senator. And you need to run up on that person just like you would if you got mad at a Democrat. So don't feel like because they're Republican and you're not, that they don't have to represent you. Make them represent you. And then to Fatima's point, I live in New York. Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand need to hear from people, right? Like they are clear, because you could be in a place where you could say, well, I don't need to call Schumer or Gillibrand because they're already going to do the right thing. No, they need to hear precisely to Michelle's point, because some staffer needs to say to them, we're overwhelmed with calls, we need to do more.
That's absolutely the case. I didn't work in the US Senate like Michele, but I work in the state Senate. And our champions need to have the ground to fight for not only their constituents in their nation. So phone calls, the new thing, because I'm getting old, tweeting at your your representatives, making phone calls, emailing, and old-fashioned, it might not get there for another show, old-fashioned mail. Are effective ways. I would say the most effective way, and Michele, we probably agree, is actually mail, because you have to do something with that piece of paper. But given the fact that it might get there in January for another show, service. But Michele, share a little bit about why it's important for citizens in particular to reach out to their U.S. senators, because just having a couple of members that are sick means that like the margins of how many votes that they have to move this along, you add in like sick members or members who aren't able to participate, changes the dynamic of what the vote looks like, if there were to be a vote, because there wouldn't be a vote.
That's exactly right. And I think, there are a few things here. One of the like honors and privilege of my life was being able to work up close and working on the nomination of Sonia Sotomayor. Like, I will go down in history. It was just such an honor and privilege to help shepherd her nomination through the Senate. And what you realize, I would say, are three things. One, so much of this is relational, right? So what was happening is there were conversations happening between senator and senator, that we were saying, listen, this is the backing we have. This is what this means. If you do this, this is, this will help change this dynamic. And so when you have people calling, tens of thousands of people calling, saying this process isn't right, wait until the election, like let the people have a say. That then is a talking point that then someone who is your ally in this fight can then say to another senator. And there are about 5 or 6 senators who are on the bubble. And when I say on the bubble, I mean like holding on with that last little, you know, sometimes when your track thread is just like hanging on the side, like hanging on like that. Okay. Shout out to the 5 Black people in Maine. Like that is what's happening in a number of these Senate seats. And so just a little bit more engagement changes the dynamic of who's going to be in the Senate when the vote actually happens. You have people like Mark Kelly, who is running in a special election. He could be seated by the time if they move forward on a vote. That changes the dynamic. So I just think that, you know, stepping back from this is not the time to disarm. And you know, the thing that I'll say is I am tired, right? I'm doing virtual learning. I'm working full time. You know, white people attacking my husband every day in elected office because you can't talk about saving Black lives without somebody trying to attack you and sending a threat. When I saw that thing on Twitter, like, we don't give about death threats, I was like, what day of the week do you want me to share my death threat on me and my family? But anyway, I digress. But I get why everyone is feeling a type of pressure and some achy tiredness. I get that. It's very real. But on November 4th, that's when you can take a little bit of a breather. Like, this is not the time to let up because there are so many things at play. I just honestly think about, you know, I've lost family members from COVID now, and how different a country this would be if someone else was governing, when someone else didn't have to like fight so that the healthcare that our president is now receiving could be available to everyone in this country, right? Like, just how fundamentally different my work as a working woman would be if we had paid leave and we had childcare subsidies, and if we had people who had a living wage so that they can go to work, earn some money, know that that job will be there, and then be able to take time off to take care for their families. It's just a different way of living. And because we've been denied it for so long, we don't think it exists, but it actually does. And so that's the future that I'm fighting for. That's why I'm taking my sip hour, my little cup of tea, and we got to just push on through.
Well, you mentioned November coming, and we originally set this show because we were like 30 more voting days, 30 more voting days. It's here, it's here, it's here. And the last few days, I think the public conversation and the media conversation has been so laser focused on this COVID debacle coming out of the White House, but there's 30 more voting days. So, and we're also seeing dramatic voter suppression in like an escalation in states around the country, but also people are voting. We have had over 3 million people vote already, and we aren't even at the point where the majority of states are doing early voting, where, you know, that next week it'll be like that height. So what, you know, Adrienne, what is driving this? What is driving people voting in the way that they are? What's driving the mobilization? I think we know what's driving the suppression, but you could talk about that too.
I think there are a few things driving the turnout, and I don't think we should expect to see any kind of dip. I think that we're just going to see surge after surge after surge. And part of what's driving it, obviously, is that people find the way that our country is being governed and the way that we are all being forced to live because of that ineffective governance untenable. People want it over. People want a path forward. People want a way out. And so we're seeing people voting because they feel like there's a lot at stake. And you could say that on both sides of the equation, right? People feel like there's a lot at stake, and they're coming out sort of in this way to sort of push forward what they think is right for the country. And then another part of it is people are deeply concerned about the safety of voting during a pandemic. And so we're seeing this increase in vote by mail across demographics, right? Because people are worried about, having to show up and be in long lines. People saw those lines during the primary. People remember Wisconsin. People remember Texas. People remember those, 5, 6, 7 hour waits in lines with people with masks on. Everyone remembers that image of the young mother with her baby sitting in a chair in the rain in Georgia, right? So people remember all that, and no one wants that. And so we see this uptick in vote by mail. And so I think that there are some things, and we will be talking about this between now and the next 30 days, that people are voting by mail. People have started to vote in person also early. There's, even in Michigan, right? So people can go vote absentee in person. Right. So there are, sort of people are waiting for their moment, right, to be able to cast their ballot. But we need to make sure that people are doing it, especially if you're voting by mail. We need to make sure that people are following all of the instructions. And I'll say that, and I know that Judith will say it, and everyone will say it over and over again. There are some specific steps that you have to take. We do not want to see any more ballots rejected. We know that Black folks' ballots are being rejected at higher rates. A lot of that is because this is all new to people. And so they're not quite clear that they have to actually follow each and every one of those steps, but I'm here to tell you that you do. And in some cases, in some states, if you live in North Carolina, for example, and you have filled out your ballot wrong, and the Board of Election reaches out to you and tells you that your ballot has been filled out wrong, you need to go and fix it. Because we're also seeing that Black folks are not curing or fixing their ballots at the same rates as white folks. And so when you get that notice that says there was something wrong with your ballot, know that you have an opportunity to fix it, and you can go and fix it. So we need to keep up, right, with making sure that our votes are being counted. But I think that, Fatima, to your point, like, people have been waiting for this moment to be able to participate since 2017, right? We've seen the uptick in turnout across the last 3 years in every election, and we're just continuing to see that now.
And there will be some suppressions. I mean, Judith, we're seeing some states worse than others, right? But I mean, you and other organizations are like on guard, on the front lines, battling and tackling constantly.
Yeah, please. I just yesterday spent a day with my team preparing for our stolen election. And so, having been one of the lawyers that litigated in 2000 in Florida against the Secretary of State, I'm preparing for that to happen again. And we see it, we've seen the steps being taken. I never thought that we would get to a point where literally the United States Postal Service would be the target of voter suppression, like to take down a whole postal service, which is like, through rain and sleet and whatever, right? Like, to take that down in order to execute the stealing of an election is pretty damn desperate, right? But then we recently had in Texas, the governor, Governor Abbott, at the last minute decides that there should only be one drop-off box in every county. There's 254 counties in Texas, and people know how large Texas is, and each county is huge. So that means if you do absentee voting and you want to drop off instead of using mail, because you knew that the Postal Service is a little bit of a problem, then you want to drop off, you're going to have to go to this one place. So people are having to travel 30 or more miles to get to the elections office for that drop off. He did it last minute. He had been saying for a very long time that we're gonna have these drop boxes all over the place, and then all of a sudden, so there's like 2 lawsuits already pending around that. This is the other thing, is that because of all the steps they've taken to suppress the vote and all of the litigation, it's confusing as hell for people. And so, it's important to have reliable information. You know, vote.org is one of the places to go to find out about your state. But as Adrienne said, if you decide that you want to vote by mail, please read everything on that ballot, dot those I's, cross those T's. There's stupid requirements. I will tell you, stupid, like rewrite your address. Why the hell I gotta rewrite my address? You know my address, but you gotta do it. So do those things. And if you're gonna vote in person, because a lot of people are still, do it during early voting. There are a lot of early voting days. You can vote on the weekend in most places. Mask up, be prepared, but you know, we know the most important thing is that we vote.
Well, we're going to stick with this for a while because there are 30 more days. Get your plan in place. This was a busy week, Adrienne. Take us through these last hot topics.
Well, I think there's only one hot topic. I can't even say it. I'm so excited about this hot topic that I can't even get it out. I think there's one hot topic that we should start with, and that was the Saturday Night Live last night. And I guess we could talk about the cold open and all of that, but really we should talk about Megan Thee Stallion. And her love letter to Black women in general, but also her lifting up Breonna Taylor and, you know, the tragedy that was the report that came out of the grand jury that we talked about. And it does, you know, I will say this, that it does feel like there has been every day is like it's hard, the time, like when we say time has no meaning, I feel like that grand jury briefing was 3 months.
Yeah.
But Meg came through last night. Did folks watch it?
Yes.
I did. I am part of the hotties. I am a Megan Thee Stallion fan. I've been trying to work on my knees, but but anyway, that's why I got these 4 kids. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But the thing that I loved about what she did last night is, in, you know, her most popular song right now, Savage, with the Beyonce remix, she stopped and she said, we need to protect Black women. Mm-hmm. And then she had the words behind her calling out Daniel Cameron by name. And then she was like, we need to protect our Black men, because y'all need Black women. Y'all need Black men. I mean, it was so beautiful. And, you know, I think oftentimes we don't think about how important our cultural influences are. But the fact that now people, I am sure if you checked on Google search trends, Daniel Cameron's name was popping up, because now people are like, who is that? And like, what did he do? And what's the relation with Meg? You know, like, and that's a whole nother group of people who will now become activists because she took 30 seconds out of her show on the Saturday Night Live reopen to bring Black women and Black men to the forefront. And I just think it was great.
You know, it's interesting, folks. You know, there's been a lot of commentary. This is definitely a hot topic in the Twitter streets. And you have some folks who have feelings about, you know, just Meg and Cardi and like how they show up in the world, how comfortable they are in their sexuality. I heard someone call it hip hop feminism, which, you know, we could deconstruct. That's another show. But, you know, some folks were saying her twerking and then also trying to say, you know, send this message at the same time was a little convoluted. I think to Michelle's point, like there is a demographic who is not following the Breonna Taylor case as closely as those of us who are, you know, in the weeds. And I believe that she did hit a chord, both with an audience of younger folks, but also folks who don't look like us, who have not been following the goings on as it relates to the grand jury. I was shocked that NBC allowed that clip to play. I said, "Oh, okay. Did Meg like switch the tape on them?" You know, I was like, "They would just call him a coon on SNL." Oh, well, how did who? Lauren Michaels, I see you. Like, let that get past. Interesting.
Tracy, to your point, I do think, I mean, so there is people, you speak to who you can speak to, right?
That's right.
And we bring in whoever we can bring in. It reminded me of the, did we talk about the take your booty to the pole?
We did not, but honey.
Right, but then, right, but this is what I'm saying, right? Like there's a whole, we had in 18, we kept saying we were going to do a whole campaign called Twerking to the Polls, right? But it is, I think that the reality is in this moment, we have to get everyone engaged, and the message to them and how we deliver it is important. One other kind of cultural pop moment that happened last night.
Before, can I just say, she also looked gorgeous, by the
Oh,
way.
And
she is a stallion.
The whole,
And she turned it over.
the back of the all of it. Last night, I feel like before I went to sleep, because y'all know I go to sleep, just fall out at early times. So last night before I went to sleep, I looked at Twitter and realized that the hashtag Proud Boys had been taken over. And I was scrolling through, right, sort of hilariously. I couldn't figure out if it was George Takei who did it. I kept seeing his name.
I think he kicked it off. I think George Takei put out the call. People responded.
Yeah, that was great. And so for folks who don't know, on Twitter, the Proud Boys, which white supremacist group, what happened was that the hashtag was then taken over by our friends in the gay community, showed all pictures of gay love, queer love, beautiful love, and it was gorgeous, and it was so great, so great.
At first, when I clicked, I was like, oh, here they go. Who did they hurt now? And then I saw some beautiful black men. I was like, oh, yes, they're giving all the good love.
Yesterday, there was a subset of America that literally was like, what is going on? Because this black woman on my NBC has taken over talking about protect Black women. And then let me go over to my social feed, because I know my community is still there. And then they took over.
Well, I mean, for me, it's one of the examples that culture is the battleground right now. Like, we are in the midst of a culture war. We don't talk about it that way, but that's exactly what it is. And I think the thing that was so exciting to see Megan and particularly her Daniel Cameron, is, Black women drive politics, we drive culture, and we drive the economy. Like, she was right? She didn't say it in those terms, but that's exactly what it is. And it's just an example of the power that we have when we utilize the platforms that we have to stand up and flat-footed talk about the need for protecting Black women. So I thought it was amazing. I don't know if she'll ever get invited back on. Hopefully
I believe that she will, and I'm going to be looking for some more hashtag takeovers or reclaimings. Actually, I think is really what it was. I want to the last thing I just want to hit a note on is a sad note, right? Which is the announcement that John Legend and Chrissy Teigen lost their newborn. And the thing that is that I felt that was really important about what they did was sharing that moment and sharing that grief, and then seeing other people respond about having had the same experience, and just creating this moment for people to be able to publicly and collectively grieve, both with them, but also for themselves. In given that many people won't share that kind of experience, and that there is something maybe transformative in sharing that with others. Just really a really poignant moment, and sharing the photos I thought was also just really showed a lot of grace in terms of them bringing folks in to their experience.
I think the visibility of sharing your pain was just so powerful, whether it was, something related to motherhood or other forms of grief. Just the fact that they were open enough to let us in, I think speaks to so many people who are constantly dealing with shame and grief and trauma, and they keep them by themselves. This week was hard for me too, because we were celebrating or recognizing the 1-year anniversary of one of my best friends who committed suicide. And this month is Suicide Awareness Month. And I think, just the collective of having 5 Black women who are on the front lines every single day. I would like to think that the openness that you bring to the show, you give people a space so that they don't feel so alone. And I think that that's what we often have to fight against. Like, we're not alone in this fight. We actually have a community. There are people standing with us. And I thought that that was just a beautiful moment to let us all share. And I just love sharing with you guys today. It was really special. I love you guys.
Well, thank you, Michele, for joining us. You will see her as much as she can grab a corner in her house. So thank you so much, Michele Jawando, who is one of our newest contributors at the SIP. And thank y'all for joining Sunday Brunch with Higher Heights, powered by the SIP. 30-day countdown. This is your go-to place to be in space and community with Black women, but also the space to be informed, engage, and to take action on our drive to the end of voting on November 3rd and then the day after. And so meet us on Wednesday. Wednesday is #MVP Day. I'll put a question mark because it might get canceled, but we are driving there like it's not. And so this will be a full day coverage of a pre-analysis of what we're expecting to see in the vice president debate, and then meet us right back at 8 o'clock for coverage throughout the vice president debate. And your SIP host will be with you. And so this hour was powered by Tracy Sturdivant from the League, Judith Brown Dianis from the Advancement Project Action Fund, Adrian Shropshire from Black PAC, Fatima Goss-Graves from the National Women's Law Center Action Fund. I am Linda Carr from Higher Heights, and thanks for sipping with us today.
Thank you.